Hi, it's Elizabeth Miller at Paris House Woolworks, and I thought today I would answer a question that I get from a lot of beginner rug hookers and actually from a lot of people in general, not just beginners in rug hooking. And that is, what is my favorite rug foundation? Now, I want to preface this with everybody has their preferred rug foundation. This is one rug hooker's opinion. It is not by any means the end all and be all of what you should be using in your rug hooking. But I'm going to answer the question. This is just my opinion and my personal preference in my rug hooking. Okay, so I'm going to go over several different types of rug foundation, and I'm going to talk about one. One of the more traditional foundations that we saw a lot in rug hooking in the past was burlap. And I know some people still like to use burlap today. Burlap is not my preference. I don't use burlap. We don't provide it in the studio. And part of the reason for that is because burlap has a tendency to feel a little harsher on the hands, and burlap can also degrade a little bit easier. If you've ever been in vintage shops or antique shops, or you have antique rugs or vintage rugs in your home, you may notice that burlap is prone to getting a little crunchy, disintegrating around the edges. And even though today's burlap is not your grandma's burlap, I personally stay away from it. Having said that, every once in a blue moon, I find a pattern by another artist that I fall in love with, and it's on burlap. And I don't hook other people's patterns very often, but if I love it and it's on burlap, I'm going to hook it. So nothing is an absolute, but I personally do not prefer burlap. Now, I'm going to kind of go in order of what I like to work with myself. So we started with burlap, which I don't work on at all. And now we're going to talk about monk's cloth. So monk's cloth is a drapey fabric. You can see that the holes are pretty tight. The weave is fairly tight. It's got these nice lines that kind of show you where the grain is every couple of inches. And this is a cotton fabric. A lot of times people who do punch hooking like to use this, but I've also seen traditional rug hookers prefer this. And a lot of people like it. It's not for me. One of the things I don't like about what I don't like about monk's cloth is that it's a little bit stretchier than some of the other foundations. So when you're trying to stretch it tight on your hooper frame, I find that it has a little more give to it than some of the other foundations. Plus it's really drapey. Now, having said all that, I think if I were going to make something wearable, like a shawl, a hooked shawl, or a hooked vest, or maybe a soft hooked bag, I might actually want to use this. We do carry it because, again, we have punchers who love our patterns on it, and we also have rug hookers who like working with it. So always available here, but again, not my personal favorite. So the next thing I'm going to show you is rug warp. Rug warp is also a cotton material. The weave is a little bigger. The holes are a little bit bigger. And I use warp quite a bit for things that are not real precious to me. This is a cotton material. The holes are very uniform and even, which I think makes it nice to hook on. But because it's a cotton material, I think it's also not going to wear quite as well as linen. Nonetheless, I teach a lot of beginners on this because I think the holes are so nice and even, and the grain is so even and easy to see that I think it makes it easy for beginners to kind of get the rhythm of pulling loops. And I think it also helps beginners see the grain super clearly, and you can get a Sharpie right in there if you're drawing your pattern on it, on the grain. Again, suitable for punch and traditional hooking, and I like it and I use it. All right. The next foundation I'm going to show you is linen. So linen is my favorite foundation generally. This is bleached linen, which is not my absolute favorite foundation. Bleached linen is, again, it's a linen fabric. You can see the holes again. This is like primitive bleached linen, so the holes are a little bigger than if it were fine or traditional linen. And the reason I love hooking on linen is because it has a pretty soft hand, like it feels good. When you stretch it onto your frame or hoop, it really stays tight. It stays put. The rug warp also does that. And linen is super durable. When you see articles or TV shows about ancient archaeological sites and they're pulling out linen clothing and linen wrappings and linen sandals that are 2,000 or 3,000 years old, that's because linen, like wool, is an extremely durable fabric. So I always use linen if I'm hooking something that I literally want to last generations. The only thing I don't love personally about this linen foundation is that it is bleached. And unless you want some of your background to show, or you would want to dye this some color that was going to show, I think the bleaching is one more process, probably not super environmentally friendly, that was unnecessary in the production of the linen. And bleached linen is a little bit more expensive than unbleached linen. So I'm going to show you my all-time favorite, which is unbleached linen. In this case, this is primitive linen. Again, if this were fine or traditional linen, the holes would be slightly smaller. But since I hook predominantly in 5 and 6, the primitive linen, the holes are a good size for me. You can see it's like a tan color, so it has not been bleached. And this linen is extremely durable. With good care, a rug hooked on linen will last hundreds of years, if not more. So that's why this is my favorite foundation. Not as expensive as the bleached linen, but more expensive than the rug warp or the monk's cloth. So that is my thoughts on rug foundations. Again, everybody has their own preferences. There's no one right or wrong answer, but I get the question so often that that I thought I would just go over it. And the other question I get immediately afterward is, where do I source my linen and my foundations? And I get all of my foundations here at Paris House Woolworks from the Door Mill store in New Hampshire. That is our favorite source for linen and foundations of all kinds. So that's it. If you would like to buy any of these by the yard, you can do so from us, but you can also order any of our patterns and kits on any of these foundations based on your preferences. So thanks for listening, and happy hooking.